Right, we're back on Hangouts now, aren't we, Angel?
Yes, we are.
Because Angel wants to show us something that he has found.
Okay. Do you have a pen and paper there?
Do I? Yeah, I can write things down.
And your cell phone is handy to use as a calculator?
Well, I'm using it to have the Hangout with.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, let's just see. I might have to use it and whatever. But so there you are, Professor Angel.
See, the trick is I want you to do the math, so it's like, I'm not trying to trick anything. That's right.
Well, I'm sure I can do that. I'll just have to go to my calculator when you say so. So, what is it you have found? Tell me.
What is the length of a year?
In days, you mean?
Yeah.
300 and, was it 52 days? Or was it 54? I can't remember.
365.
Oh my god, alright, okay, 365. Whoops, that's not very good, is it?
Alright. And then do you know the decimal after that?
What do you mean by that? Will it be full stop, wouldn't it?
It's not really 365. It's 365 and a quarter.
Oh, right.
But it's really not 365 and a quarter because every fourth year isn't a leap year. Every fourth leap year is a leap year, unless it lands on 1,000, in which case it isn't a leap year, or it was the inverse of whatever it was before. Anyway, that is the complicated mathematical calculation that we are taught, as far as I understand. And is that not really...
Oh, 1 second. I've done it wrong. I've done the... So, back with Angel on Hangouts now. Angel reckons that he has found something. And he's already asked me a question. How many days are there in a year? There's 365 and a quarter days. And?
Well, it's not really a quarter, because every fourth year we skip a day, do that whole leap year, or we add the day, you know what I mean? But every 100 years we don't, but every 400 years we do, but every 1,000 years we don't, but every 4,000 years we do.
Wow.
So that is my understanding of the math behind, or the rationale behind it. And I think that's because we're trying to make the current system we're working with jive, fit the story, yes. Where I really think the truth is, if we pay attention to that Antikythera mechanism, it reveals a lot of information. Now, you are familiar with the Antikythera mechanism, right?
Well, explain it in case anybody doesn't know about it.
Well, it's a device which I think has limited use, but does have a use if you don't think that well, whoever created it for a reason. And what it does is it will calculate when you put in the position of certain celestial bodies, the wandering stars, and you put them into the device. It will tell you the moon sign. It'll tell you, it really calculates the position of the celestial bodies to a chronological time. And it does it using gears. It's not using, solarium. There's no iPhone hidden inside that device. It's all mechanical. And in there, all of the celestial bodies within our heavens can work. And this other thing about this wonderful toy is it is accurate over the course of thousands of years. And it's accurate using gears, physical gears, not mathematics, keeping in calculation of where we are and the rotations and the 66.6 degree curve and all that other stuff. It doesn't none of that is calculated into the. It's all done with gears. Now, one of the numbers in the machine is a prime number, and I think it's 1277. So I'd like you to write that number down, 1277, and let's verify is that prime. Do you have a computer you can verify that's a prime number? I just want to make sure that's the right number we're working with. Is
Hang
1277?
on, because I have to look it up.
It is 1277 prime. I'm just gonna.
Okay, 2 seconds. You want me to look it up?
Well, yeah, just so you can verify. Yes, it is a prime number. It is a prime number. Now that number is going to come into play. I guarantee it. All right. So
Okay, well, we'll take your word for that one then, Angel.
So let's take the fact that people wobble back and forth between what is the number of the mathematics, and I think it all has to, if you're really going to look at it, because that toy doesn't take into account to calculate days, years, and months according to Pope Gregory's edict of following the sun, and the sun is the reset of the calendar. It follows the edict the way the Jewish calendar does of following the celestial bodies, the non-wandering stars, the ones that haven't been wandering for a really long time, that rotate around that North Star one we all love. So let's just assume that my math is right, and let's just say that it actually works out to be a really nice clean number of 365.222. Okay, so take that number, and let's just suppose that the people who developed the unit of measurement that we love were way smarter than us. And they also, if we've paid attention to some things, which I believe are true, which would be Karl Monk and his discovery of the mathematical way that they mapped longitude and latitude way before we did, and using the AngelGizaPyramid, the thing I love so much, as its prime meridian. And let's assume that they believe that a circle has 365 degrees in it. So let's take that number and multiply it by 365. By 360 degrees. Can you do that for me? And tell me, if you have a calculator handy there, what your answer to that is?
1 second. Going to my calculator. Takes a second, sorry.
That's fine.
Calculator.
Do.
Yeah, sorry, here it comes. Here's the calculator. So you want me to put 365 times 360?
365.222 times 360.
So 365.123 times 360 equals 479.22.
0.22?
92.
0.92. Okay, good, perfect. All right. So now let's take that measurement and because we don't like decimals, we're going to, the unit of measurement we're going to come out with, let's add a 0 to the end of that and get rid of the decimal. All right, take that big number. So just on your number, just multiply it by 1,000. Just times 1,000. That gets rid of the decimal. Yes, times 1,000. It gets rid of the decimal. So it'll give you 131 million, blah, blah, blah. Got that?
Just get rid of the 92 then.
Don't get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. We're going to move the decimal by timesing it by 1,000.
All right. Times 1, 1, 2, 3. That's it, isn't it?
Okay, so now it should end in 920.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, just to show you that that prime number 1277 is in there, I could make it factor it out, but just divide that by 1277 and confirm that it comes out with a nice clean number.
102,960.
Right. Which means that that prime number is hidden within that number. So I told you that number was going to be important, and that number, which is a fairly large prime number, is hidden within that, and is found within the AngelGizaPyramid mechanism.
Right.
Because, so now just re-times it again by 1277, so you get to the big number. Okay.
1277.
Okay,
1277.
Right. And you should have the 131, 47.
4979920. Oh, right, yeah.
Okay. Now let's just assume that the people who did this were smart, and that's a foot. Let's just guess. Just throw a whim out there. So divide that by 5280, which is the number of feet in a mile.
Oh, you want me to do more?
Yeah.
Oh, I just went off it. Hang on. And now times it by what?
Divide it.
Oh.
Divide it by 5280, the number of feet in a mile.
24,901.
0.5.
Yeah, 0.5. Oh my God, yes, 0.5.
How many hypothetical miles is it a distance around the equator?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, no, because I don't believe what
Ask
they say.
Ask the magical Google how many miles it is around the circumference of the equator.
Okay, hang on. That one, right. So you're just saying that it's much bigger then?
No.
Right. What is it? What is the circumference of the Earth?
Yes, that would, Google will give you the answer. Should tell you.
Just doing it. 24,901 miles.
0.5. It should say and a
Doesn't
half.
say that. It says 24,901.
Well, ask it for a more exact answer, and it will tell you and a half.
Right. Well, we believe you.
Well, I don't. It's actually, I wanted it somewhere. If you look, it will tell you.
Can you do it then? You show me then.
Well, the thing is, I wanted you to get the answer, because if it doesn't come out right, you're saying like, oh, you're just.
It just says it's 24,901, which is 40.75 kilometers. What is it for this one?
Hang on. What?
It doesn't on that one either.
Circumference of the Earth at the equator. Let me just say, at the equator. Well, I was always taught it was and a half.
Well, we believe you anyway. They're just not putting it in there, are they?
Well, no, because it works out to be a perfect number. Okay, if we go back to that big number, the 131, within that is, if you divide it by 60 for the 60 minutes and 60 seconds, it's all within that number. You can locate any spot. Like if you were using the aerial equidistant map as a
so what you're basically saying is they're a lot cleverer than we thought they were.
Yes, I am. That's what I'm looking for. The thing when you're measuring the I can't think of what they call them. The freaking not Mormons. masons.
Right.
They've got the L and the freaking thing with the twisty on it, so you can get the exact measurements. What am I calling the thing? You're making me look stupid. I'm making me look stupid.
Not a compass.
The compass. Well, the
Oh my
compass.
God, it was that simple. Sorry.
Well, no, I think of the compass on the, but I guess that's what they call it, a compass. Okay, that you twist and it gets the exact measurement, and you can take that and move it and do your measurements. All right, so or draw circles.
Yeah,
or
we know what you
whatever.
mean. We know what you mean.
All right, so it was designed if you take the area equidistant map and you use the equator as your measurements, it works out that measurement is the year times 360 degrees. So each location along that, which is 1 foot, if you break it down into feet, each one of them can be calculated for within that number. And within there is also the prime number of 1277, which is one of the gears within the Antikythera mechanism. So our whole celestial body rotates around at that measurement. That is the true calculation of time. And one of the things that has been irking me for a while is I kind of enlightened you as I went to the Pompeii exhibit. When I went to the Pompeii exhibit, they tried to force the I can't even remember the exact things.
It's the AD and BC and all that.
Yeah, current era and A or B, BCE, before current era, and current era. And they use the calculation of when they say the current era started as the life and death of the Christ child, which is only because they don't want to throw everything up and say, here's a brand new calendar. But the problem is they're squishing out the Christ child and overtaking their calculation, which is really overtaken of the Jewish calculation, the Hebrew calculation. And all of it has been skewed, and they can say later when they're telling us what time is, instead of us looking up and using our sextants and using our other tools that they have. A sextant's really nice, one of them. I have one in the other room, to calculate time for ourselves. And we are losing that relationship with the world we live in, to the point where they can easily, within a generation, say, here's a brand new calendar, have a nice day. No one's going to have any time to go back within another 2 generations. They can just they can manipulate. They are getting to the point where they can manipulate everything. They do, but it's scary because we don't have any contact with reality. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with
Wow.
You get that? Okay, it's sinking in.
Mm-hmm.
The calculation of the foot being a measurement, which is a calculation of the rotation of the celestial bodies above in relationship to the earth. That's, I guess that's the best way I can put it. It's the relationship of the two, that we can, I believe, truly mathematically calculate to a 3-digit decimal point. That's a nice clean number of 222, which has that prime number, which is found in the Antikythera mechanism.
So, Angel, what does that mean then? We can never follow what our true history is because they've changed it.
Well, the Antikythera mechanism could be used to confirm or deny when current time is, but we are not calculating time the way we should. And I think part of the reason we don't calculate time the way it should, because then we would see the rhythm of nature, because nature does have a rhythm. They used to plant when the second moon, full moon. It was done that way for a reason. I think in some cases it was done that way for the reason. The second blue moon of the whatever is because there were certain gases in the sky or something of some, there was a reason for it. And for whatever reason, the intelligent design of this particular bubble we live in, whether it's a blue marble or whether it's a bubble, it's really irrelevant. it was intelligently designed, and I think we are trying to, as far as we can, dismiss the relationship between things that we have just always known and used. I mean, how long has the foot been a measurement of time? This would honestly be one of the questions that our friend, he may know this because he's the one who's probably more of a
Oh,
historian.
is that one of the reasons you wanted to hang out with him?
No,
Being
it's a thought now that I'm thinking of, that he would be one of the people that more than likely has researched through time when it was the foot started to be used. And I can also tell you the meter is also a measurement derived from what I believe to be the measurement. If we forego the curvature of the earth and we just calculate from the equator to the pole, that should be 40,000 kilometers. I believe it is the number. We calculate it as 40,008 or something because we calculate it because there's a curvature of the bubble. Okay, forget the bubble. Okay, don't worry about the bubble. And these are measurements that we have fallen back upon using because they were always there, and they were a measurement that was given to us, and they are all of them, both of them, show that the creator of that measurement had a knowledge greater than we did at the time we started using the measurement. So if it is a calculation, which I believe it is, of the rotation of the earth in respect to the heavenly bodies.
How did you find all this then, Angel?
Because I love the Antikythera device mechanism as much as I love the pyramids. Both of them are an out-of-place artifact. Both of them are not truly loved for what they are. The Antikythera mechanism shows us mechanically what a computer program up until recently, it would have taken people with, slide rules and abacuses, I love my toys, these computers of the past, and sitting there to make these calculations. And now we do it with this thing called like Stellarium or whatever, which has a freeware version of it, which will tell you the moon should be over here and this should be over here and Skylab's over here. And not Skylab. It's not Skylab anymore. Dates me, doesn't it?
I bet you're a bit shocked when you put the numbers in, and then when you add them back in a slightly different way, it's all the same.
Right, because within that number, within the measurement of the foot, falls the calculation of time as well. If you start with that big number, the 131, 479, 920 number, you can, out of that, divide 24 for the hours, divide 60 for the minutes, 60 for the seconds. You can divide everything up because each one of those locations along the spot has been calculated for, and is how time, I believe, was developed. I do believe that it was developed, and I probably, if I had to, the other person I would probably ask is Dave from Beyond the Dark Side or whatever, Down the Rabbit Hole. If it's within his calculation of how he calculates the movement of the bodies, if he uses the 1277, and if not, if he would consider redoing the math and not using our current time and date calculation and actually using the true calculation the way the Hebrew calendar says to do it, and our time and date should all be in relationship to
I wonder this whole thing with BC and AD and all that, whether, although we call it Jesus was born, it's a time. It's when something started.
Right, and it's when the Roman Catholics decided to plop their 0 year, and that's great and wonderful. But the Jews were around, the Hebrews were around prior to that calendar clock. They weren't going around like, it's 8 AD, or sorry, it's 8 BC. In 8 more years, we're gonna have a big, huge, thing up there, and some baby's gonna pop out, and then year 1. All right, So it they started their clock there, just like we propped the prime meridian right there at the Greenwich, England Museum of, Star
Yeah,
Watching
it's
or
still
whatever
quite,
it
if
is.
it's 2,000 years ago, that's still sort of a more advanced thing to be doing. Why would you be worried? Well, we're supposed to be poor and with horses and carts. We'd be worrying about our next meal.
Well, I honestly don't think the people at the time of Christ wanted or had anything to do with that calculating of time. They didn't sit there and at the whoever the Pope was or Pharaoh was or whatever it was at the time did sit there and say like Christ child's born. All right, let's redo the whole things. They waited for the guy the V. The one that pulled all the popes together and said, "Hey, we're gonna change Christmas to be December, standardize the holidays."
What, St. Christopher?
Constantine. I don't know why I said V.
Oh, okay,
Pope,
okay.
Pope Constantine standardized the holidays so that they can have their pagan worship days that would fall
I
in
think the
line.
Romans had different calendars as well. They had their calendar was shorter.
There was lots of weird stuff. I'm not going to say there wasn't, but the thing is, I'm sure if we look at it, and this is something else that Bren or somebody might want to know, is the Hebrew calendar. It doesn't calculate time according to the Gregorian calendar, because the Gregorian calendar calculates time according to the rotation of the sun. It's, pagan worshiping. Where I'm pretty dang sure the Aztec calendar most likely follows the progression of the celestial bodies, the non-wandering stars. Now, one thing I stumbled on, and I don't know if you wanted to touch up on what that was, but I was going to get over to, is the Crystal Cathedral. It's in Florida. I've been there. Coral Castle. What that gentleman did is he made, I think it's like 5 locations. In each location, when you're sitting there, there's a spot where there's either a hole or a target or something of that nature, where if you were sitting there and the celestial body, like when you're in the Jupiter area, the Jupiter's within that spot, then target 1 has been acquired. Now, all 5 of them only line up on one particular day every like 13 million years or something like that, because of the way all our celestial bodies move within prime numbered calculations, as according to easily proven with the Antikythera mechanism. I don't have to make it up. The toy that was found in the bottom of the water demonstrates it, and probably with more accuracy than stellarium, but that's aside the matter. The way that the Bible and everything else is created, with certain stars being in certain locations within the heaven, is a way of showing when time is. That will only happen every X number of thousands of years, and that would be a way to calculate when to get back on rhythm with time. But because we don't pay attention to the celestial bodies, our governmenting bodies can eventually at some point completely get us off whack, and it doesn't matter. And they can say January is in the middle of December because they want it that way, and we're completely off whack with our, not just the circadian rhythm, but our annual rhythm of our planting things and everything else. It is scary what our government has seized control of, because we have not paid enough attention, or apathy. We've not paid enough attention to what we're giving up. This little thing
Another
tells
reason we
time.
probably got mobile phones. Yeah.
I don't look at
Let's
a sun.
look it up on a mobile phone through Google.
Well, let's ask Google. But it bothers me that it doesn't say, 24,901 and a half, because that is what I was taught. It was and a half. And that number, that nice number, comes to a half, a clean, nice a half, which is when I first was playing with that, and I found that, it was scary. But that number is found within the Antikythera mechanism, and it is like the key. I can't find the right click to get back to meetings. There I am. Okay. It is the key to, that number is the key to understanding a lot of the other numbers and where they came from. It shows us how the measurement that we call a foot is a deviation of the length of the equator. That is an uncanny, scary number. That it works out that way. And that number then, like I said, can be divided up to where you can pretty much pick a time on there, and it is a calculated for. It's just, there's no end to halves. Oh, there is a halves. The inches divided by 12, because of the 12 days of the light when the sun is out. Now, using that, you can calculate, almost anything you want to the, I don't know what that would be. It would be 1,000th of a second.
So what do you think they're doing then by changing all this? What do you think they're doing?
Well,
just getting rid of history.
If you don't, I was always told in school, and at the time I really didn't question it because I was a little guy, that the length of a foot was some king's foot, some king's measurement of some king blah blah blah's foot, and they got tired of changing it, so they stopped and they decided to stand of it. And it all came from Mother England, because Mother England at the time, that the sun never set on that English Empire. Yes, you can say the same about the American Empire, but and that never really sat well with me. And then we, as a child, we started getting the meter shoved down our throat. We were told it was just developed in the 60s by somebody, and he got a Nobel Prize for calculating it, and blah, 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 blah. The origin of the meter never really stuck with me either. And I think both of them are a measurement that we use because both of them are in harmonious with the foot we're using because it was a length of measurement. The meter we're using because it's in harmony with certain aspects of the earth. And hence scientists, it's like calling Fahrenheit by another name, but still using it. Or actually more to the point, I would say Celsius, because Celsius is calculation of when it freezes to when it boils. And that is something which is, it changes with your elevation, but is pretty much a constant. Where Fahrenheit was supposedly 100 degrees was somebody's temperature on the, that's another one. I'd really like to get the true thing, but it was supposedly somebody's temperature, average temperature at their hottest, and then the coldest day in the city or something like that.
Does it change anything? I mean, obviously, they've kind of taken it out or changed it, but does it change anything about measurements, about anything?
Well, when you can see how this number is actually a calculatable number, a calculated number, I think it shows more evidence of how we are, as I think as Graham Hancock puts it, we are a civilization in amnesia. I think part of it is done intentionally. I do think there is definitely, as I don't know if you know of her, Charlotte Isabit. She wrote a book, Deliberate Dumbing Down of the U.S. or Deliberate Dumbing Down or something like that, where it was documenting how the No Child Left Behind policies and all these other policies were really designed to get the children into apathy instead of thriving for knowledge. And it did exactly what it's intended to do. We now have a country of so do you, of children that don't want to work. They're happier staying at home. I guess I resemble that remark in some ways. But either way,
you work, Angel, and you're working on the pyramid all the time.
Well, okay, I'm not going to argue that one. I do live, sleep, and drink this stuff. What do you want? What do you don't want to come up? If you don't want to say hi to people, can you leave me alone? Okay, sorry. My puppy here is trying to be. There you go. Say hi. Say hi.
Hello.
Hey, say hi to all the nice people.
You're on the Sun and Moon channel.
There you
Hello,
go.
guys. What the hell is that?
So, what I was getting at is that these numbers.
That's another frustration, isn't it?
The numbers, not only do they fall into place, but they're recreatable. I understand how they were acquired, and part of it is because some people say like the Earth rotation is 242, and some other things that it was 22, or they said it was 22, and it's just that number falls in line with the calculations of the Antikythera mechanism. And the problem is that it's not even a problem. The fact that the Antikythera mechanism is a physical device and has such a long period of accuracy is uncanny that it may be that our celestial bodies are on some sort of a, God forbid, gearing system. But if nothing else, they are all on a path, all of them, even the moon with its rotation, and it's 223, which is a prime number of how it does that many rotations, which is like 27 years or whatever, before it's ever back in the exact location, because it's got a slight extra twist to it. Even that's a prime number, and that happens every 27, and I think it was 27 and a quarter years, or 27 and a third years, or something. Forget the number.
I did something.
Go
Years ago, we used to have hangouts with Dave Marsh. He managed to get like 500 years of the future moon. So NASA were explaining the next 500 years worth of when the cycles were going on the moon. He had all the charts. How could they do that? See, because it's a calculation, I suppose.
It is. That's what I'm saying, is it is calculatable. They know exactly when a equator is. The only thing that they get wrong is the path it takes and which way the things are moving, because they're trying to mentally rationalize it in their heliocentric model, or solocentric model, polar-centric model, whatever it is, the sun heliocentric model, as opposed to
even that last eclipse, how they couldn't see, or anybody couldn't see, that whatever was happening the other side of the sun.
Right. That's because they're not envisioning. They're envisioning what NASA has taught them. They're envisioning what they have been fed in school, which is not reality. And things like when somebody can look up and see a solar eclipse with their own eyes and say like, hey, that's not what they said, and say like, maybe there's some other reason. But a lot of people, they don't take the time to look up. A lot of people, they just look at it and they don't question it, because they don't pay attention to exactly what they said, and they can't calculate it using their models, because the models that the people who are at ground level trying to explain it don't understand it, because they're using the wrong model. Which is why I say with this thing, I got to have the right model. There are some pieces to it that I'm assuming which can be confirmed, and when they're confirmed, either I have to like say, well, they must have done something, or say, oh, I was wrong about the whole thing. But I don't think at this point I'm wrong about the whole thing. I could be off by a bit here and there, but everything I've learned, I learn more, and I love more about it. What I'm saying is the Antikythera mechanism is something that is unappreciated. What the level of knowledge and how it was calculated using a mechanical device. It's like a Swiss watch calculates the movement of the sun and the progression of the phases of the sun, and when the new moon is and all that stuff, and it can all calculate that within all the gears, which all circle around, the one moving mechanism, which calculates it, that rhythm, and it's all done off of that particular rhythm. In this particular case, and it's all geared, so there's only the positions are, everything is based off of that particular mechanism down to the exactly where it is. There's no in betweens. It's kind of like when you're doing the physics, you get down to the level, there's only certain steps that can be taken within the energy states. The gears have only so many positions, just like the feet along the circumference. There's one calculation for each one. I guess if you measure it at noon every day along the progression, and it is quite a interesting thing to see how the measurement we call a foot was developed. I believe, and it works out. I don't have to. It makes all the sense in the world that it was a calculation of the circumference of around the Earth, and it fits into the.
Basically, they had to be far more advanced then.
They had to be way far more advanced, and they calculated time using the progression of the celestial bodies, not the sun. The sun was not their chronological god. The movement of the celestial bodies was the chronological god, just like in the Hebrew.
I suppose in the globe world, it is the sun they follow, isn't it? With everything.
The sun
in it.
The sun is followed. The Roman Catholics said this is time. This is how we calculate time. Here's the calendar. Read it, learn it, love it. And if you don't read it, learn it, love it, we're going to call you funny names. And then a couple of years later, they changed it. And I think it wasn't Pope Gregory, but somebody else who changed January instead of April to be the New Year's. And everyone who still celebrated New Year's when New Year's used to be, they said, "Oh, you're an April Fool. Ha ha ha. You still use the old calendar. Come on, get with the new one. The new calendar says, now we're in daylight savings plus 3 time because it breaks every time zone down to 3. So like we can be more in time with our circadian rhythms. It's just they can do whatever. We got 15 minutes.
Yeah, my shot the other day, Dubai, which is quite a long way from me, like I'd say probably about at least the same distance as America, is only 3.5 hours in front of me. And say New York is 6 hours behind me. So God knows how they worked it out, really. But I think it's because nothing's lying the way they say it is.
Well, that is also part of the reason. And I can understand with our the way that we are now, that we can communicate with. I'm communicating with you on the other side of the pond. I guarantee you're thousands of miles away from me, but you could be in the next room for all I know. And this is something
very like that. It is really weird. We don't have we used to get a little bit of time delay sometimes, but there's no time delay. That is quite incredible, really, that bit.
The technology is quite awesome. I cannot.
It's probably from before, isn't it? It's probably not even theirs. They've taken it from before. It was what we call those Tartarians.
That I'm not stretching.
Anyway, we're not going there. Carry on.
They needed a way to have a way for time to be, so we could have the meetup. We knew exactly when to get on the line, and that coordination. I can understand why things were broken up and time was divvied so that they had some sense of, hey, are you calling me today? Yeah, I said I'd call you at noon. Well, it's like 3 now. Well, it ain't noon here for another hour, dude. So those things didn't happen until quite relatively recent. You sent a letter to somebody, they got it months later, not moments later.
But that's what they tell us. But how do we know? Because they probably had flying machines hundreds of years. Like, this is what you reckon the pyramid is made for. That it was separating water and air and making helium and all these other gases and heavy water, right. And maybe using something that we don't even use today. So we don't understand it because we don't use it. But they were using it, or the heavy water, whatever it was. And you thought that maybe it was for airships.
what I'm saying is in our current, since let's go since the Vikings and Columbus and stuff like that. In our current era, um, coordination across time zones wasn't really necessary until Marconi and radio, and Tesla actually and radio, in my opinion. But Marconi is the one who really pushed it to the commercial use. It no one had to care if somebody in Chicago was still sleeping while you're finished, just finished raking the plow, fields and about ready for your first sack of suds. And you're all, your day's over and this guy's waking up. You didn't care because you weren't trying to call him. There was no communication that distance. The Pony Express wasn't even that quick. So coordination over time zones wasn't necessary. So coordinating time wasn't necessary. It wasn't until later down the road that coordination, and why I think, have given up our world to letting our government decide what the time zones are. And I don't think the time zones really are even calculated for in that number. That number is a pure number. It would be like Zulu time. It just knows in relationship to its motion, its movement. Like I'm saying in the Swiss watch, whatever is the core there, that everything moves around, everything's in relation to that one thing, and everything is going to be a measurement of it. Every gear, whatever it is, you can multiply all the numbers of all the prime numbers. There's only that many different positions it can be in, because it's all mechanical and it's all gears and they're all in finite locations. I believe our heavenly bodies may be almost perfectly as finite, because there's a toy that, and I say toy when I can look at a Swiss watch and call it a toy, but really it's elegance and its movement and how accurate it is and all that other stuff. The Antikythera mechanism should be really taught within the same awe, but it's accuracy in relationship to a software that we have, which is quite new, and supposedly took lots of knowledge to plug it in there to get to it, and they had it in a birdhouse size mechanism. Now my question is, what would they need it for? And that's where the rabbit hole gets deep. And
yeah, because people say that we've been completely mined. Completely mined. Even Antarctica's been mined.
Well, but there's still obviously.
Sorry, the dog's having a whoop-de-doo in the background if she's making a noise. I told you she's been doing this for about 3 or 4 days now.
All right, my dog was doing the same. He still is.
Listen, we've only got 10 minutes. Do we want to start another hangout?
We can do that. You want to stop? We can each attend to our pets, and then we'll start another one.
Well, Ellie's turned up. That's what that's about. I don't have to really attend. She's just doing what she's doing just down there. But yeah.
Do another one?
Start another one and finish off?
Yeah, go ahead.
There she goes. It's good timing. Look, there she goes. I'm just going to stop the video recorder. Right, yeah, we've only got like 10 minutes. Right, so me and Angel have changed hangouts and we're back now, and your picture's changed. You're on the left now, but never mind. I did just say to you when we were just finishing the few minutes left on the thingy bob that the astrology chart is kind of made up of the circle. And Claudio uses a circle on all his stuff.
Well, it's because the astrology chart is based off of the celestial, the zodiac signs, which are the celestial bodies. They're all the same thing. And I'm less and less dismissing that there is a actual click that happens at the time of your birth that relates to chronologically the time of your birth, when you were born and what season you were born and things of that nature. I think where a certain celestial body was at the time, I don't quite understand how that would give into your moods, but it is a good way to calculate the time you were born, because that
Yeah,
particular.
to be honest, I find it's very accurate to the kind of person I am. When it's telling you this, you've got this, you've got a moon in Pisces, you're a Libra rising, you're a Gemini, you've got these things, and you look at it all. I'm very like the chart that they tell me I am. That's crazy as well. But I liked astrology.
Well, I have known
Before,
people that were very into it and got me one that was trying to tell me what mood I'd have, and I'll tell you one of the one of the things
you're not moody at all, are you, Angel?
one of the things I did in high school, in elementary school and high school, when girls would come by and ask you, you know, when were you born? What color eyes do you have? What, this, what time was it when you were born? It's like, I don't know, man. I just woke up and there's a big light in my face. And is I would always give them an inaccurate birthday. And I did that so that whatever answer they gave me, I could dismiss as inaccurate. Because I really didn't want somebody to come back and say like, oh, it says here you're going to get hit by a car later today. And I'm going to be like, hit by a car. I'm not going to get hit by a car. Oh, and not paying attention because I'm too worried about being hit by a car. So I didn't ever give it the time of day to find out if it was accurate or not. Like, oh, it says you're going to be grumpy today. I'm not grumpy today. And that's just where I'm sticking with it. But
yeah, I like to look up certain things. I'm not very good at the transexence or whatever it is, or the trines and all that. But the actual houses bit I can do. I kind of like that. But
I do think it is actually good that people know at the time of their birth, as long as they're using the right charts and stuff, what celestial bodies were in what locations. Because if they were to go into some chronological cryo state and come out, they would be able to calculate their time of birth in respect to their current time that they are in, knowing the location, because certain celestial bodies will only be in that particular location in respect to the other heavenly body once every 180 years, once every 350 years, and I don't feel 300 years old. So
the whole point about this thing that we started talking about with the changing our history is that it just takes you away from what you can't. Later on, no one will be able to find out the history because it's so wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing which I believe to be accurately true is when people say let them eat cake. My understanding, how I was taught, and it makes total sense to me, and you can tell me if you believe me, is at the time they made cakes in big vats that were the size of like drums, bigger, like more the ones they do wines in than the ones they do beer in, big ones. And the stuff that's caked to the side, while you're making these big, things for your bread and all that stuff for the, their industrial scale, you'd get this stuff caked to the side, and that was referred to as the cake, because it was caked to the side. And he said, let them eat cake. That's like the scraps. And that makes a whole lot more sense that they're saying let them eat scraps than let them have croissants and egg McMuffins. It was like let them have the scraps, which is what the cake is referred to in the bread factory. And it's just the terminology is important to know what that meant at the time. Like if somebody says hey, give me 5, and they put their hand up, people know what that means. You go to somebody.
What kind of place do you think that we'd have been living in as they were so much more advanced? What would it have been like then?
Well, that would all be speculation. And I tell you that they had a good grasp of their environment and the surroundings and all the, how nature would work. You can do what they were doing, at least in respect to the Giza Plateau, commercially, just like how, I'm jumping here, but Jeffrey Dunn with his one that he's gone over, it can be done commercially using pressure and heat and, forcing the chemical reactions along. But just like a compost pile, it will happen if you give it time. And the way the structure was, the one that he was playing with, was designed, is that the different gases and stuff help separate and move the process along. So how it was done was actually really, really well designed to take advantage of nature and pressures and buoyancy of different things.
And they had to know what they were doing as well.
Yes, and they had to have done it enough so that they know, when you put this much slop in, this percentage of it's going to turn to gas, and this percentage of it's going to turn into this, and this percent, it's, they were very in tune with nature, and we force feed it. I put mine in the compost pile. I just wait a year and pull it out of the bottom.
Angel, it's
Yeah.
not. We know that it's not really real what they're doing. I mean, obviously, they might have different kind of weapons, but the nuclear ones. But it's like a nuclear bombs happened, destroyed nearly everything, and then you've got left these bits.
Could be. I'm not going to argue that one.
Maybe a nuclear thing isn't right, but it's like somebody's gone through, exterminated lots, big floods have happened, parts of land have disappeared that we were living on.
That could be true as well. I mean,
guess what? Just to add to the little thing, last weekend I saw in the paper that it said that like they do an outer thing with the Earth on it, then they do 2 more circles, and then there's a really hot one in the. I mean, they're all hot, but a smaller, hotter one in the middle. They said that is now rotating the wrong way, and it didn't make main news.
Are these supposed to be like magnetospheres or the Van Allen belt type things?
Well, we've only been 8 miles down, so how would they know if we were a globe what was in the middle?
Oh, so they're talking down. I thought you were talking
they're
up.
talking right. Wherever it is, it's rotating the wrong way. But as we're a globe rotating, and that's rotating the wrong way, surely that will slow the rotation of the Earth down, or even stop it, or whatever. Or maybe it will start rotating the other way.
They also are telling you that.
Oh, how ridiculous! They didn't make it main news. They just stuck it in there somewhere. I made a video about it. It's not out yet. Pathetic though, isn't it? It's just like, how can the middle of the Earth be rotating the other way? But how would they, if we were a globe? They've never been down there. We've only been 8 miles.
Yeah, and it's also been shown that if a metal, when it gets hot enough that it becomes molten, it loses its magnetic properties.
Well, there you go. There's 2 problems then. Anyway, let's carry on from that, because we know that one's not true, even if I can't believe it. It was on an English paper like The Guardian or something. But I've made a video of it.
Did you see the screenshot I sent you?
Yes, it didn't have the 0.5, did it?
What did it say? 0.46.
Let me just 1 second. I'm just going to stop this recording for 2 seconds. I'm going to go to your picture. There you go. Angel's got it there. That's what it says.
Now I'm going to tell you that it probably is 0.5 to the penny, and their 0.461 is maybe an inaccurate thing. But I believe it probably will find, when you see that how well that number fits. Well, it has to fit into all the other calculations, because like I said, that number was derived from the Antikythera mechanism, and that Antikythera mechanism was accurate for a span of thousands of years. So just like somebody can say,
There's
well,
no way that we just started going around in cars and spacecraft then, is there really? It all had to be happening hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I mean, hundreds of years ago.
Well, they may not have used cars. In fact, we may find, and again, this is where I'd like to actually talk to somebody about what the pyramid does, but they actually have to follow the model, because they may be siphoning out a gas, which, like I was saying to you, how the clouds hit that one barrier and they don't go below it. They just sit on it like a shelf. It is possible that there is a phase of water, or the compound we call water, and or a compound of the gas that is slightly less dense and it hits that shelf and rides on it like a, you see how clouds, they sit there, they're flat across the whole area, and hence utilizing that gas, they could have used that the same way that we use helium or hydrogen.
Do you think the clouds were lower in those days?
No, that doesn't have to be the clouds being lower, but they could have used it to give something buoyancy. So
Right.
it could hover a few feet off the ground, especially if it had some weight behind it, because it's using a gas that is found in, you can see how clouds, they sit there.
I don't seem to understand all the magnetic side of things. They would have understood the magnetic, the whole thing, and probably everything we thought of has been made before.
Right. It is possible that they were taking that density of that gas and pulling it down into the system and capturing it and then using it to fill like a Zeppelin or a blimp, whatever. And it would give it some buoyancy, maybe not enough that it would go hundreds of feet in the air like our helium Zeppelins do and hot air balloons, but it still could potentially be useful as something. I don't know exactly what the structure does. I don't know.
Actually,
but then
Angel, I was going to ask you, so it's not a burial chamber. What is it?
It's a machine.
Yeah,
the thing you use to stuff back and forth to make rugs and stuff like that. I can walk up to one of those and I can tell you that it's it's a machine. What exactly it makes, that really depends on what's moving, and even if it has a ticker tape with holes in it that move the things, I don't know what the end result is until it goes through the thing and you see the end result. I don't know what it does, but I do know it's not a tomb. I know it's a machine. I know part of what it's working with, and I know the characteristics of what it's working with, because you can tell how they have it captured. And I just need somebody to actually kind of take me seriously and to help me figure out what it does, as opposed to tell me that would never work, because it obviously does work. It does something. There's another machine like the Antikythera mechanism that uses water, and it goes through, I forget what it's called, but there's like two of them in existence, and one of them's broken or something like that, and they're afraid to turn it on because they don't know what it does. But they could tell that it had something to do with heating water and moving it through the system, and the way it had one of those spin things that when the things come up, it would pinch it off and it comes down. So it had valves and mechanisms, so you could tell part of the system and what it was doing. But until they turn it on, I think that one was more a funny toy that might have made a rhythm or chirped in a certain way or something. I don't think it actually had a product. That was more of a tabletop Mr. Wizard show, where the pyramid had a product. They were taking a harvest. But again, what that product is, whether it was a gas or a lighter than water liquid, I don't know. What they used it for, I don't know. But they took the time to build.
But you did say, haven't you, in one of our hangouts, that maybe it's something that we don't use today or don't understand, but they did, and they were using it.
Right, something we don't appreciate. Something they were doing something with it, and maybe we don't see the use today. Maybe like a buggy whip. If there was a huge mill making buggy whips, and you marched 100 kids today through there, they would never be able to understand what it was making, because they don't know what a buggy whip is or understand where in time it was useful, unless they're into S&M. But that's a whole nother story, and kids shouldn't be doing that. But it's
I'll tell you, I'm a bit disappointed, Angel, that we don't see the pyramids.
Well, I had put that up because I was going to draw something, but.
Oh, go on then. Draw something then.
Well, I was going to, with you and the number, I was going to have you do the number, and I was going to write it down and show you how it broke out.
You should have done that.
How that one number and how it's hidden in there, and that number is its ratio, its aspect ratio, and in respect to the moving chronological system we call the celestial movements above us, which is documented by the Antikythera mechanism, and how it is all done in gears, and it shows all the movement very accurately for a span of thousands of years. And I don't know how far into the distance it will show or how far into the past it would go.
In a way, they must have understood this because, okay, I call it like a music thing, but you've shown us that drawing with how all the steps are different, and then when the static electricity hits that, what it creates. And they had to have understood all that as well.
Yes, they were much more observant of the world they live in. Although, you can ask any kid.
You've got that picture there, Angel.
Did what?
That picture of like the music note. It's not a music note thing, but the picture with all the stones on it with the different, like it's all. You've got pictures of them. You have them in the Hangouts.
I do. I have lots of pictures. Unfortunately, I'm trying to figure out which one you want.
Just the one showing the steps, that it's almost a bit like a musical.
Oh, that one I keep handy. Yes. You're talking about this one.
Yes, Floss is having a whippy-do downstairs, I'm afraid. I'm just going to shut the door a bit. Floss! God! Yeah, look at that. That's a sequence, isn't it?
It is. Now, some of these elevations actually echo. The elevations are echoed within the structure at different points, and it's not only just that structure; it's also the furthest structure. Although I think it's more that the furthest structure is echoing what's in that structure, because the furthest structure has a section in it. Let me cheat. I'm going to show you some pictures. Yeah, there it is. Now, this is not my creating of this image. It's somebody else's. But I'm showing you that other people have noticed this. It's not just me. Now, in the north side of that smaller pyramid, there are teeth cut into it. You can see how it goes in. They put it with a dotted line there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. And there are elevations. This elevation here works in line with the bottom of the pit inside what they like to call the king's chamber. I like to call that the combustion chamber. This bottom of this shaft is in line with, I believe, to where the elevation of the water in the king's chamber would be. This top side of that is the boss mark, where the water would be falling back down, where that gap right there where it has that spark.
Hang on a minute, Angel. Hang on a moment.
It's like it's the spark gap, which I believe they're showing you in physical form, the spark gap. And then the top part of this, which isn't accurate from what I understand, the top part of there is actually a little bit further the way it does it, and that is in line with the like second shelf above the area they like to call the relieving chamber within the king's chamber. And I think that shows that pressure zone for that area there, which is where I say the hydrogen comes up from above, and it's within that pressure zone is where it is joined with the water and then comes down.
So it started there and then went to the big one, or it started in the big one and went to the
I believe
one?
This is communication, is what I'm alluding to you. They are visually showing you here the different steps and elevations, and those align with the elevations within this structure. This is communication that you see from outside the structure, giving you, a visual representation of what's happening within the structure. Now, when I say visual representation, I think it's just so they made sure they had the right elevations. We could find out down the road mathematically that this little antennae here, which I'm suggesting to you, is taking the ambient static electricity that's on the surface of here and brings it down to below ground level within here, teasing the gas or liquid, whatever it is that they're harvesting within this structure, to be captured, held. Like if you those Allumastorms, you know, did I pull out that Allumastorm thing where you touch it and sparks fly at it? Did I show you that thing?
No, we've talked about that. I think we might have done it on a video, but not recently, no.
Okay, well, I will go get one the next time this breaks. But if you bring your fingers towards it, you'll see the sparks trying to get to your finger. As the potential gets closer.
You want to go and get it? Go and get it. I'll just stop for a second.
Okay. So.
Yes, I've made Angel go and get one.
You can buy these things on eBay for like $10. That in some cases include shipping. They're really cool because they plug into a USB port. Now, because I have inadequacy problems, I bought a big one. Now, it's also easier to show you stuff with the bigger one. Now, there's a lot of dust on it, so you may even get a fire out of this deal today.
Yes, you haven't done your dusting.
I haven't turned this on in a decade.
Oh,
All right, so I don't know. You can see
okay.
the light, right?
Yeah.
Now, as I put my finger towards it, you see it going towards my finger. It's starting to strain towards it. And as I get closer, now it's really touching it. See that?
Yeah.
Now, if I dust this off more, and actually, I've gone crazy. Here in the States, we have 3 plugs. We've got our hot and our hot and our neutral and our ground. Don't try this at home. If you shove a copper wire into the ground and then step on it and then pull your finger here, because you are directly connected to ground, you can actually get this thing to arc. And then you have more fun. Don't try this at home. You put a penny on top of here and you hold a nickel into your hand. You can actually get a spark to come out about maybe an inch. You start it and you grow the spark. And if you do it right, you can even do it with your finger. And on one of my fingers, I probably still have where it burnt my finger.
That's not hot, is it?
No, it's not hot. But it is cool. I put these out at Halloween too. The kids love them. These are now, it doesn't work as well. It's not a Van de Graaff generator. But sometimes if you get a kid with thin blonde hair, you can get some reaction out of it, but it's not the same as a Van.
That's not hot. That's a cold fusion weapon, isn't it? Well, not a weapon. That's a cold fusion, isn't it?
Fusion is technically where you change something from not one state like water to gas, like boiling it, but you're changing it from one element to another by either collecting a neutron, dropping a neutron, collecting an alpha particle or a beta particle. Beta particle, I think, is like helium. Alpha particle is an electron, or vice versa. No, alpha is electron, beta is basically a helium molecule. But either way, what I was getting at is electricity will find the path of least resistance. And I brought this up for a reason. Oh yeah, I was saying if I was grounded more than I am right now, as I put my finger even close to it, you'd see these things going for it. And you can even do it on a nice night if you're outside. I'll do it during Halloween, and I'll go to touch it. I can see it now, right? If I look at it, I've got like a dozen little fingers reaching for them. I pull it away, they go away, because they're wanting to get to ground. And I don't even have to be touching it. The same reason why Reiki energy works. I don't know if you're,
But it's only a piece of plastic protecting it, isn't it?
It's actually glass in this one.
Glass.
I think the other one's glass too. I don't think it's plastic. I think it's glass. If it is plastic, I think they'd spray a glass on the inside because they need something which is semi-non-conductive. But that's why
get hot with heat, so it's not hot, is it? Because it doesn't get hot.
No, well, I can make it get hot. I told you, if I ground myself and I hold it, or I'm not touching the glass, when I touch it, you feel a little tingle. It feels like you're touching a 9-volt battery or something like that. It's not 9-volt. I think it's actually like, feels like 1.5 volts. I don't know. But you can feel a little bit of a tingle. But if you put a piece of metal on there and then you hold a piece of metal in your hand, you can get them to spark between the metal. And I've found if you put your finger on there and you just get it right next to it, you can actually get it to arc to your finger. But the problem with that is it burns. It's like touching the top of a soldering iron. I burnt my finger when I used to play with this thing when I was bored, when I used to work at Radio Shack when I was a teenager. This was one of our play toys. We used to sell this thing for $150. Of course, I bought mine for $30 on eBay, and I have, like I said, I have like 3 or 4 more of them, including this little one that I can put in my car, and it actually will blink to the light too. It's got, sound light sensitive. It plugs into the USB. So it's actually kind of cool. You can put it on a bicycle or in your car on your dashboard, whatever. It's kind of a cool toy. And this would have been hundreds of dollars when I was a kid. And again, let's go back to electricity we were talking about. This right here can be run off of this right here. Okay? So, and this is kind of cool. And it can be run off of this right here. So a little bit of electricity can actually have a kind of a cool use. Even if it's a parlor trick, it's still a cool use. This little bit of electricity 2 decades ago, you couldn't do it. This right here is AC. This one probably can run off a DC if you had to somehow re-engineer it. Obviously, it works with that one. But this one here was made back in the heyday when, we were just learning about it. Now, if I do keep my hand there, I can feel it's getting hotter. I can feel the heat.
Right.
So the Death Star is about ready to fire. Yeah, it's starting to get warm. I wouldn't want to do that all day. It's going to get warmer and warmer. But like I said, you can put a penny on there or a washer and then hold another coin in your hand. You can get it to spark. You can have lots of fun with this. It can be, if you put a piece of paper between it, it'll, you can start a fire. So let me put this thing down now. I'll put it down. Your father was a windograph generator. So, I think they were visually showing us at least elevations. They're also, part of it is functional. I do believe that this right here is a reverse antenna to take that static electricity here and center it down here where this isn't actually drawn to accuracy. It kind of curves around that from what I truly understand its shape to be. And that, I believe, is taking whatever this gas is. If it's just the same as the clouds up above us, where it's floating there, it pulls it down and keeps it in its energy state how they're suggesting that.
What happens if they picked up clouds that had a thunderstorm in them and flashes of lightning?
Well, I don't think they're actually per se pulling in thunderstorms. I think they're recreating an environment to create the gas, to create the element, to create the compound, whatever it is that is at that elevation. This was all done kind of high in the air, like we're talking 150, 200 feet in the air. And this thing is 500 feet from 450 feet all the way up to there. So this would be about 200 feet mark. So it's kind of up there you're 200 feet in the air. So whatever environment you're creating you're creating it up in the cloud level. And it could be, again, this is why I want to build it. All this is speculation. Once we build it and let the thing go, it'll start doing whatever it is. It's kind of like the movie Contact, where they have the blueprints and they have the machine, but they don't know what it is until they turn it on. I want to go for the ride. I want to see what it does, because I think it'll actually show us that these guys had great knowledge. If nothing else, they were trying to do something, but the scarring within it, the marks showing elevations of different densities of liquids within it, how they have watermarks kind of shows you that it was working long enough to leave watermarks, and it was definitely separating different liquids because there are watermarks at different elevations. So it was functioning. Whatever it was doing it for a while, and it was doing it with enough efficiency that, in some areas, the scarring shows that it was quite violent.
There's not many people that talk about it quite like you do, though, is there, Angel?
I'd like to meet him. The only person I know is that Jeffrey Dunn guy. Only I think I don't think he's seeing it as the whole. He's focusing on one thing, and he's throwing stuff at the wall, and some of it sounds good, but it's not taking into the rest of the big picture. I've proved myself wrong as I've expanded my model to take in the rest of the system, and I've learned more about hydraulics and different stuff. But I'm guessing what's going to happen. I'd really like to build it and see what's going to happen. I'd like to confirm it. I'd like to actually watch it happen. Even if it takes,
fortune, though, wouldn't it, Angel?
Well, parts of it would. Even if it takes 3 months for the first drop of water to fall, and that water is shown to be slightly more dense than the pool in average, it just shows that they knew how nature would work. It is quite possible.
It looks like it probably had water around it as well at the time, doesn't it?
Yes, I believe that a lot of the plateau was saturated with water. There was a flow. Now it's not like a raging river.
We talked in the last hangout about boats being there.
Well, I believe that's a separate scenario, but around the back side of the mountain, there is supposedly evidence of docks.
Because people don't realise
merchant-sized boats.
You've got the pyramids on that plateau, but to that side, there's quite a big drop down.
There is.
And that's the bit that had the water in it. Maybe.
It is possible. I mean, there could have been a big lake back there for, that part is possible. But as I expand more upon it, I will learn. But the water that fed it came from somewhere. It had to come from elevation. And the logical spot that I can think of would be the top of the hill, where there are 3 openings. They call them N1, N2, and N3. And 2 is the one
that's one.
And 2 is the one that goes down into what they call the Lost Caves of Giza. There was a documentary on it where people went a mile into the cave, which they said kind of goes practically due north. And I'm sorry, wasn't due north. It was due west. And it went pretty straight, but it followed what they call the cave vein or whatever. But I at the time, I believe it was an aquifer, which would have been an aquifer vein. Same thing. It just was filled with water instead of filled with bats. And that would have been the source of the water, and that would have brought the whole system to life. It would be great to know the other end of it, but either way, it is not inconceivable that at one point it had water in it, especially since I think
this video says they found where boats could dock and everything like that.
Yes, they found what looked to be chiseled, not man-made, but chiseled, cut so that larger ships, we're talking 80 feet. We're not talking like the ships we have today, the several hundred or several thousand feet ships, 1,000+ feet ships. These were more of the ones, which would make sense because they were coming up a river. That you're not going to have some oil tanker coming up a river. They were more the size of the Nina and the Panta, the smaller ones, what were they, 60, 70 foot vessels, 100-foot max-ish. Still big ships. It's not like, Bob going out fishing on the weekend, but it is where they would have docks probably for bringing in supplies of some type or even exporting the cargo they were harvesting. That part is, speculation, but it would make sense when you look into the system as a whole, and they were most likely harvesting a product. They weren't doing this just to
I think it was probably bringing stuff in because, we've talked about it on other hangouts that there's all these tunnels underneath the pyramid. And they probably go to other ones on the plateau as well. And they're all linked. And it was a dirty grate machine.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with a dirty grate machine. What is that?
Well, because there'd be loads of pyramids involved if you're shipping it along the line.
Oh, it is possible that also the structures were a power supply, and that the conduits, the tunnels, the conduits were each the positive and negative, and they were doing things on instead of the same way we use copper wires, they were using conduits of liquid. But that would really be more, I would need to get elevations of certain things because water doesn't run uphill. And if something is way downhill, it would just drain the system. So before I could get into that, I'd really need to get elevations of things like the Serapeum, that's over more towards Cairo, and a couple of the other things. I want to start collecting elevations, just like how you had the Sun and Moon group where you were collecting the things for that one solstice or whatever it was. Once I get elevations,
sometimes they draw pictures of the pyramids with beams coming out the top.
They could draw it with dinosaurs on top.
No, what I'm saying is, what about when they draw with the beams? If you say that it's going to the clouds.
Beams. Actually, if you using whatever it is, the ones that look at energy states, you can see on some of the structures that there is energy flowing between the clouds. Just like, have I showed you the video with the kids playing with fluorescent tubes under the power lines?
No.
God, that one is so worth looking. I'm going to pull it up while we're talking, but energy flows whether you see it or not. OREC, fluorescent tubes, power lines. Here we go. Okay. How do I'm going to have to see. Whoa.
Share your screen.
Share my screen?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'll do a share my screen thing. Let me figure out how.
Yeah, share the, whatever it is, yeah.
I do that present thing. Video editing, camera, don't want to change that. Present, there we go. There we go.
Have to wait a moment. Oh. Hang on a sec. We have to turn the volume down. 2, 1.
This isn't really as good as, there's one where you see kids running underneath it, and when the kids are running, you can see that the energy, the power, is going halfway up the tube and then jumping over the kids. Here, it's this one.
Turn the volume off.
And when the kids run through here, watch when they run through, if I can. There they go. See, as they're walking, how the fluorescent tube goes on and off?
Oh, yeah.
The energy finds the path of least resistance. This is before nightfall. And it will jump from one spot to another. You don't see it. Oh, that's good, where he does it with his hand. You don't, this lets you visually see what you can't see, the static electricity and the energy that's in the air all around us. Now, as that person gets close to it, the light bulb will go out. As that kid runs by it, the light bulb will go out. There's a spot where he touches it, and you can see the energy as he's touching it. I guess we have to wait for, I don't know exactly where it is in here, but
there's no way you want it to be.
There it is, right there. See that? As he's running his hand up and down it? Because the energy finds the path of least resistance. If it can jump to you, your body is actually a slightly better conductor than what is in the fluorescent tube, which is a vacuum. It's not a vacuum. It's supposedly argon or whatever, and some mercury gas. So our bodies are a better conductor than argon and mercury gas, and electricity will find the path of least resistance. You don't have to believe me. This is a visual representation of what I'm saying, and it's hard to see it because you can't really see energy. But if there are scopes that'll let you see the energy, see as they're walking, it dulls down as they walk by. So the energy is there, and it will be going from up to down, or it's either going from ground to up or from up to ground. Either way, it is going, and even if it's minute amounts, it is still there and it is still functioning, even if you can't visually see it. And this, I think, is great because it lets you visually see something which normally you can't visually see. It's hard to visually see static electricity. But right there, this isn't truly static electricity. It's just ambient amounts of ambient electricity, because the power lines bleed electricity. and this is a really cool demo for it. So did I lose?
No, I'm here. I was listening.
Okay, I just heard something.
I was listening to you, Angel. We're back to 15 minutes, Angel.
Oh, that's what that was, the 15-minute notice.
But do you think, because we've been going for an hour and a half now, we've given masses of information today.
But what I'm showing is, what I'm saying, suggesting is, it's hard for people to believe me when they have never been shown it. And that video is, I think, a really good way for people to see the static.
What has been happening with the pyramids? It's just slightly different because they're not fluorescent lights, but
either way, there is energy upstairs, God up there, and there is ground, and that energy is going between the two. It's going to find the path of least resistance, and it's always moving. It's always trying to balance. If you there's people in Arizona that will take a little rocket with a 30 gauge wire and will shoot a rocket up into the cloud, and then a lightning bolt will come down that wire, and they play with lightning bolts. And it's just, it'll happen. It's just nature. They're taking advantage of giving a path of least resistance, a little 30 gauge wire. Now, if you do the same thing with a pyramid, it's going to jump to the pyramid and then disperse to ground. It's going to happen. And there are, on the right day, when enough of it is happening, with the right settings on the right cameras, you can see the differences in the energy, or the differences in the heat, or the differences in the I guess it would be the temperature of the air, because as the energy is going through it, there's going to be a difference. There's different things you can see, and yes, it's there. It happens. To deny it would be denying physical science. So I do not in any way dismiss that. That is the reason this structure is truncated at the top, was to prevent the venting of the ambient static electricity off of the structure, so that the structure acts more like a Van de Graaff generator than it does a transmission tower. This one's more of a transmission tower, and this one is the status quo. That one has to be the control. It's less than this one and more than this one, so that the energy is kind of trapped in there. Like I said, it's got the ground in it we just talked about, and that creates the static electricity that's on here, which is less than this but more than this, and it holds it with a little antenna sticking in there to hold that cloud, whatever it is.
We showed the little diagram of the sort of waves on the pyramid. Is it only the Great Giza that's like that?
To my knowledge, yes. Which again is, it's the only one that I really think can be called a pyramid, because it's the only one that has a fire in the middle. It's the only one uniquely shaped like that. That's, again, so, but how do you classify it?
The little one's uniquely shaped by having that step in it as well, isn't it?
They all have unique shapes. I'm not going to argue that. But the Great Giza Pyramid, its shape I have seen echoed in no other structure that I've ever been presented with. It would be great to find one that is, because then we can say, hey, somebody mimicked it over here on this continent, or they mimicked it over there, or they did this. But no one, to my knowledge, has ever mimicked the shape that's in that structure. I don't know if it has to be the only one, kind of like the Tesla Tower when it was set up. It was going to be the only one. There only needed to be one, supposedly. And it may be the only one. It may be Chris Dunn may be right. It may be transmitting power. But I know it's also doing work within the structure. And that's the part that I think should be really looked upon. And a lot of people don't take the time to look at it because, they'll dismiss it. Oh, it's a burial chamber. Who cares about what happens if you flooded it with water?
No one's got any time or vision or understanding or realization, the celestial bodies, the whole thing. Nobody gets it, do they?
No. But
we've got a few more minutes left. But I do think it's because you said so much stuff today, Angel.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to? Obviously, we started off with them changing history. Do you want to finish on that one?
Calculating history, chronologically recording history. Yes, they are intentionally changing it. And like I said, the thing that really started me on this, like, oh my God, look at what they're doing path is the BCE and CE in respect to AD and BC, before Christ, and Anno Domini, year of our Lord, and then BCE, before current era, and CE, current era, which by definition, current era, they're saying the era started with the birth of Christ. That's not true. The current era should be calculated, if they really want to play that game, should be calculated about 4,000 years before that. Like when they say the Vikings and stuff like that kind of started their whole thing. Or you can argue that it should go back further because the Japanese go back like even further in their time to where they started time. So where does the era start? But I really don't think the current era should start in the middle of a civilization. That makes no sense to me how they do that, other than the fact that they want to push Christianity out of the way so that they have more control over time. And I think it's the powers that be that run CERN and stuff like that, fighting with the powers that be that run Rome, because Rome is where our chronological calculations are currently mastered by. When Gregory changed to the Gregorian calendar and started us following the sun, doing pagan worshiping thing instead of following the celestial bodies like the Hebrew calendar says, which is more in tune with the world, planet Earth upon we live. And it just, some people say it's good.
Frustrating, isn't it? You find so many problems, or you solve some.
People will say, oh, it's good this way. We're more, with the time zones and stuff like that. We're more technologically things. And I'm like, we're getting to the point where we're totally losing our symmetry with nature. And that's really something that time should take into account. It's probably easier if you're not in symmetry with nature to blame everything on global change, climate change, because you can't see the pattern of how things work. Oh, there's a reason there was a tornado season. There's a reason there's hurricane season. There's a reason there's the rainy season, the monsoon season. That's because climate does change. But they want to.
Well, I heard the other day that because they put all those sheep in Australia, their weather's changing because of the sheep.
Why? Because they're farting too much? That's just.
I'm just saying, weather can change, or they're changing it for us.
They'll blame it on anything they can so that they can get more affirmation towards their carbon credit thing, and making it so that you can drive less, eat less, breathe less, collect less water, have less
plastic.
Yeah, You damn worthless eaters. You feeble-minded worthless eater.
Terrible. But it made me think a bit now about, because it's just so obvious they were far more advanced. We're only seeing a bit of what was left.
Right, but you also can't see it if we're not recording time correctly, so that you can see
Or if
their.
they're even looking for it, because it's obviously there, but they're just pretending it's not there.
You can appreciate the reason behind the calculation that we have today. You don't appreciate that if we're not using the right calculation today. You don't appreciate what was gone into figuring out the mercury pressure. If you don't appreciate it, is what I'm saying. You don't. Somebody made this and they made it, and then you go and change the things around and change the measurements we use and all that stuff, and now the number doesn't jive with the system anymore. And we can get into, honestly, how things can be done whenever you're dealing with a bunch of prime numbers, and that it doesn't happen so often. Your randomness is shot when you throw out a number and in there's like 8 prime numbers. So it's not quite as random as you think, and those prime numbers can be used to relay things. Just like I'm going off the wall here. I'm going to stop now while I'm ahead. I think you lose the appreciation.
You are a computer talking.
Yeah, you lose the appreciation for the rationale behind the measurement we use. We just take it for granted. They say, here, look, this is a foot. What do we got over here? No, this doesn't have measurements on it. Hang on. This does. You sit there and you're told, make sure these aren't meters. Nope, these are inches. You're told, okay, here's your foot. There you go. It's the size of some guys' things. But you don't understand what's behind it. And that's when you appreciate how somebody somewhere mathematically have figured this all out. Somebody sat there and measured the circumference and said, okay, let's divide this. How are we going to divide it? Get a bunch of brainiacs in some room with beards, and they say, like, well, let's divide it into 360. But those are too big. What do we do then? Let's divide it into divisions of this, the progression of the. Actually, it's the ratio. It's the ratio of the Earth and the celestial movements above. Now, whether you think you're on a ball or whether you think you're flying through space or whatever you think, it's the relationship between the two, and it can be put into a number, and the relationship falls onto 1277, which is a pretty big prime number, which is hard to stumble across out of complete randomness, which is why.
How did they work it out in the first place?
They had to know. Just like, how did they know the pyramid was the center of the freaking continent? We didn't calculate that until we had, hypothetically, the GPS satellites and calculated it out. We didn't even know it. They guessed it was around 3130, but the Giza pyramid is as close to dead center of the continent as you can get. And I think it's well, of that piece of land mass.
Right, okay. It says there we've got 3 minutes left and then we get cut off. Do you think it's a good time to finish now, Angel?
I don't want to get cut off. I'm not Jewish.
No, you just like talking, don't you?
I do like talking. We could get cut off if you want. I don't mind. Or I told you I could talk for lots of things. I've got lots of stuff to say if people are willing to listen. I got lots of stuff to say if people aren't willing to listen too.
Well, should we just come back in a couple of weeks and do another one then?
We can, and think about what I'm saying. Watch how, it's hard to see because we don't track time properly. But that number 1277, which is a pretty large prime number, if you look at that, how it falls into the measurements, and I think they divide it into 12 what we call inches, because there's only really kind of 12 daylight hours. So it makes it logical that they divided it into 12 so that they can further divide it up. And that really makes more sense to me about the reason it's that size, and that comes out to be the perfect number. Like you said, you saw that number. They said it was 24901.461, which is great. I think 461, if we look at it, you're talking like a fraction of a millimeter there on the size of the inch, and it could be that we're using the wrong inch, because I think they did it mathematically. I think they,
it says we've got 1 minute.
Yeah, I think they mathematically calculated the size of the foot to be a division of the length of the circumference. And we've been using it all this time and didn't even realize it. And then that number falls into a lot of other stuff when you get into it. But,
We've run out of time. Angel, I love your hangouts. Man, he's a professor on his chair. Look, there he goes. He's going.
It's when does the minute end?
Oh, yeah, you've got to fade out. But I fade out too. It's going to end now any moment. 10, 9. You're still falling.
Believe in gravity.
Yeah, right. Oh, here we go. It's going now. You can see the countdown on the right.
I can't.
Bye,